Welcome to the 9th Symposium of Atlantic International University. This is the 9th online symposium. And my name is Dr. Edward Lambert, and we're now going to move on to our next presenter, Professor Gabriel Kabanda. And the theme of this symposium is My Legacy to Future Generations. So welcome, Professor Gabriel Kabanda.
Thank you very much, Dr. Edward Lambert. It's a great pleasure to be sharing my presentation with you. I've learned quite a lot even from the previous presenter, Pastor Babatunde. I don't know if you could allow me to share my screen.
Yes, let me see if I can get that permission in here.
If I can get the permission, I can load that, then I can present that. Once we are putting that across, I want to thank you, Dr. Edward Lambert, for organizing this conference. It's really quite a great thing, and we are learning quite a lot of things. So,
well, it was not only me. We were a team working on this at the university. Yeah. We received 100 presentations.
That's great.
So there was a committee that went through and selected that. Mm-hmm. So it's are you able to share your screen now? Do you see?
Yes, I am. I'm now putting that across. It's coming up shortly, and I will be presenting that.
And anybody who wants to record the meeting, you are free to record the meeting. You can do a screen capture, you can do audio capture, you can do a video capture. It is fine.
Okay. Right. I think it's ready now. I'm not quite sure whether everyone can see it now, and then I can proceed with the presentation once it comes out clearly. Right. Shall I proceed now?
Yes, that looks perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edward Lambert and the great team at AIU. I am an alumni of Atlantic International University. I graduated with a postdoctorate, Doctor of Science in Computer Science in February this year. So it's a great pleasure for me to be sharing with you my paper on the legacy of my life that I will leave to future generations. This presentation is going to cover a number of areas. I may not necessarily spend much time on the principles. I think those have been adequately covered by the presentation done by Pastor Dr. Babatunde. But in my presentation, I will share with you what I have done, the accomplishments and achievements I've actually made in terms of research, some of the specific projects I've worked on within Africa, and some of the work that I do also with the family, and also on the international scene, the presentations that I continue to make as a keynote speaker in various international conferences. These are some of the areas that I thought I would share with you. And then at the very end, I will then also be sharing with you some of the great innovations and scientific accomplishments that I have made over the years. Let me start off with about myself. It's important to just share with you that right from the very beginning, I am a distinguished professor of computer science. I'm also currently a fellow and the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe Academy of Sciences. This is a body within Zimbabwe that coordinates, spearheads, and gives policy direction with regards to scientific innovations throughout the country, and also working with other bodies of academies throughout the continent and the rest of the world. I also am the Secretary General of the Africa-Asia Dialogue Network. This is a network of academics and researchers from Asia, linking them across to Africa for the purpose of sharing research work, innovations, and other things that are important for business. I am recognized also as a fellow of the African Scientific Institute. At the moment, I am the chairman of the Leadership Advisory Board of the IT Governance and Cybersecurity Institute, which is based in the US. And this is an institution that is whose business is on cybersecurity. It provides advice and gives solutions to various companies in the US. And so I am the vice chairman of the advisory board of that group. I am also a professor of applied business informatics at the University of Zimbabwe Business School, where I've been teaching since 2000. I do also adjunct professor work at California State University, Chico, as well as also Ithaca College in New York. There are other activities that I do as an editor of some of these reputable journals that we have all over the world. And I do also work and do, assist other universities as an external examiner of various universities, including some of these local ones that we see. As you can see on these photos, I'll probably just share one or two photos on that. This IT governance and cybersecurity institute is really, it's an organization that works also with universities, coming up with a model to come up with skills and competencies on cybersecurity. And it works with industries and other practitioners so that practical solutions are given to make sure that organizations are well prepared and they get assistance in every way that is possible. This is just a photo of some of the work that I've been doing in the past year at California State University, where we have been training cybersecurity for executives, which is essentially like a postgraduate program that empowers people in terms of skills and competencies to assist their organizations on what they can do in that area. The Africa-Asia dialogue I mentioned earlier on is based in China. And so we coordinate and do a lot of work working with other people within China to do many other things. In the process, I have received international awards. Some of these international awards date back to Who is Who of Professionals in 1997, where I was selected as one of the best professionals and academics at that time. I've since then received other awards that include the Golden Academic Excellence and Professional Achievement Award, which was like a contest made worldwide where they were looking for the best academic or someone who has made contributions in the field of education. And this particular event took place in Malaysia, and I got that international award as the person who was selected. South African Department of Science and Technology also recognized my skills and competencies and identified me as one of the most distinguished African scientists and outstanding researchers. And then of late, this year, I got this recognition from the International Chartered World Learned Society, which works closely with UNESCO as a top distinguished professor of the century. And I've since been working also on the Global Leadership and Organizational Behavior Effectiveness Project as the country co-investigator for Zimbabwe and Zambia. It's a project where we look at leadership practices and cultures all over the world. And I was focusing on Africa and specifically with responsibilities in Zimbabwe and Zambia. With regards to my educational qualifications, I'm pleased to share with you that I've gone through all the tracks from the bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD, then in the US, and then lastly, my postdoctorate of science degree in computer science of the Atlantic International University. There are other qualifications I've attained, but these are some of the marks that I see as part of the legacy that I would like to be sharing with family, colleagues, and others in the world. that perhaps they may learn something from it, particularly with young people. They probably may get inspired if they want to pursue that. With regards to research, I have accomplished quite a number of things. I have published in refereed international journals, 78 publications. I've also published 8 book chapters. I've written and published 11 books. I've also written and edited another 8 books, making altogether 105 publications in refereed sources. In addition to all this, I've also been presenting papers at international conferences. So these are some of the accomplishments I've made with respect to research. At a national and international level, I'll probably cite also the fact that in the past, I conducted a commissioned research for Southern Africa through the SADC Secretariat. This was a project where I was looking at the need to come up with centers of specialization within Southern Africa and East Africa. And it's a project that covered all the 10 countries from East to Southern Africa, and it came up with recommendations that were then used by the World Bank to support some of the institutions involved. I have also worked in the past as a leader for research capacity building of a technical committee of the African Council for Distance Education. The African Council for Distance Education is a continental body that covers more than 70 African institutions that are interested in distance education. And so I have in the past worked as a leader, training people on research capacity building, working with the vice chancellors and deputy vice chancellors and other researchers to share experiences and practices on how we can strengthen our own institutions and reduce the gap between the institutions and the regulator authority. I've been a consultant for Microsoft International and United Nations Institute of Training and University of Southern California in the past, where they commissioned me to do a project that covered 5 countries in East and Southern Africa. And it was a wonderful project in which they were trying to look at ways and getting guidance coming from an African, how they can invest, especially with Microsoft, how they can invest further into the communities. So my paper was then used by Microsoft in plowing back into the communities within Africa using the research that I've done. I've done, I am a strategist, so I develop and come up with strategic plans for various organizations. Some of them I've done for the various units, departments, and ministries of the government of Zimbabwe, and also others that are outside. I have supervised to PhD level 11 candidates from various universities, most of them from within Zimbabwe. I am a former pro-vice chancellor of Zimbabwe Open University, I was responsible for research, innovation, enterprise development, and I continue to assist others in different areas. I've been an external examiner also in South Africa, in Mauritius, in Zimbabwe, and other institutions in Kenya, and also in the US. So I continue to share and help other universities as an external examiner with regards to, especially with regards to conforming to international standards. But I'm mostly pleased with one particular assignment that I'm very much excited about, which I did in 2019, was the appointment by the International Science Council and the World Federation of Engineering Organizations to develop and write the 2019 Global Sustainable Development Report. I really like this particular recognition, and the report was taken seriously by UNESCO and other organizations that made use of that. I have in the past also been advisor on information and communication
Doctoral.
And others for an organization based in California. We were focusing on linking science, technology, engineering, mathematics, education to sustainable development, not only in California, but also in other parts of the world. So there's been a link between African countries and the groups that were there. And I've been a reviewer of various journals as well. So these are some of the scientific accomplishments that I've made. I've worked in Africa on specific projects and assignments and research work. So here I've just listed a number of just some of the selected countries where I've done active work all the way from Southern Africa, East Africa, and then West Africa. And I always, learned quite a lot in all these African countries, how to work with them, interact, and make contributions in different areas. And I continue to work across the continent. I could also add that at this point in time, I am a member of the African Scientific Innovation Research Council, which is part of the African Union body, whose secretariat is based in Nigeria. And so as part of that group, we work closely with the African Union Secretariat and advise the continental body on scientific and innovation research issues that may be required by the politicians and policymakers. I will then take you to the level where I also can be sharing with you some of the major consultants projects. I am a consultant, I've done consultants work. And so what I'm just listing here, a few of those kinds of projects that I've done. Some of them include working with the Pan-African Institute for Basic Sciences in Kenya. I worked with them in those areas. I've done also some work with another university in Zimbabwe. And I enjoyed doing great work also in a research project, consultant work for the African Council for Decent Education, which I did in Kenya. Then with the government of Zimbabwe, a number of assignments and projects which I have done. Some of the organizations that I've done consultants with include the broadcasting authorities of Zimbabwe, the SADC Secretariat, Microsoft International, University of Southern California, and other institutions within Southern Africa, including Malawi. I did a number of projects in Malawi. I also did quite a number of a few projects in Nigeria, which I have not listed here. And in the 90s, I also did consultants work in Ghana for almost like 2 years, hopping between Ghana and Zimbabwe. Now, when it comes to family, I thought I would just share with you a few photographs. I think the one that is most important is one at the center. This is my beautiful wife at the center. I have, so that's my wife, and they were together also there, and then my mother, and then my brother. There wasn't enough space to leave to put other photos with the children, but it's important to work with family. It's important to do many things with family, create events, do memorable things, support children, and so on. Just like what Pastor Dr. Babatunda was talking about, family is really quite important in all the things that we do. In addition to family, I also do community work, doing pastoral work in the outskirts of Harare. And so I'm always, involved in a lot of community work, in addition to working with family. I have a very active website, and this is what my website looks like. I use this website for a number of reasons, a number of things. Some of the material that I put in there, I use it for various programs and courses that I teach at different universities. As you can see on my website, I do assist various organizations. I assist also researchers, research students, PhD students in particular, and others who want assistance. And I use this particular website for my lecturing material and my lectures that I give at the University of Zimbabwe, University of Technology, NAST, or National University of Science and Technology, and other institutions that I work with and that have assisted. I put this material on the website for the public to access and making it also convenient and easy for students to do. And so you find for some of my students at the University of Zimbabwe, this is just an example of what the page looks like. So they can be able to access learning materials, to interact with on such a platform. This is in over and above what is available as a learning management system at the university. You find students prefer to use my website more than anything else. And so on my website are also some video clips, and as well as also some of the selected papers that I've presented and that I continue to present in different fora in different areas. I would like then to take you now to the next level where I talk of international conferences. I'm always presenting keynote papers and at different international conferences within Africa and outside Africa. And so I just selected a few, like here on the top left hand, this was a postgraduate research supervision training. So I'm into supervision training for various institutions, universities. I've conducted a number of such webinars and training programs in India. And India is very active these days in webinars, and I've always been one of the keynote speakers. And then also with Africa Asia Dialogue Network, where the Secretary General, I also promote and work with different countries in promoting science and technology and research generally in those areas. So I continue to be presenting. And this last month, I was a keynote speaker at an international conference in China, which was the first computer and innovation and information science international conference, and a lot of other organizations and scholars and academics we're also presenting in the fora. So I'm always, I always thank God for the privilege, and that I'm invited from time to time to be presenting. And next week I'll be presenting. I've been invited to come and present as keynote speaker at the 6th African Council for Decent Education Triennial General Conference. So I also work with such organizations and sharing knowledge, doing many other things. So I'm very much actively involved in international conferences as a speaker or a contributor, sharing knowledge and education. I work closely with various international journals, and this is one of the journals where I am an editor. This is a journal which is based in the US. This is a reputable journal which really has quite a high impact factor, and a very prestigious journal where I'm an editor. And the other journals that are like that where I'm also an editor. And the other one is STEM, which is based in Pakistan, where I'm an editor. And so we are always sharing knowledge and helping, even with upcoming researchers, how they can come up with better research papers in different areas. So this is just meant to share with you that I'm actively involved in working closely with international journals in their work to publish various research articles all over the world. And this particular project, the GLOBE project, is another one that I was doing this year from March up to July, actively involved in Zambia and Zimbabwe, and sharing with us in the US and doing and Canada, coming up with various issues and ways in which we could learn cultural experiences as well as leadership cultures. The purpose of the project was to come up with research to understand the leadership cultures that we get in different countries from Africa, North Africa, and North America, West, in Asia, and so on. So we're comparing continent by continent, and as part of an international project. Then I am pleased to be sharing with you also that I have accomplished a number of things in terms of research publications in my area, in my field. I have come up with quite outstanding innovations, which have been documented as publications in the field of cybersecurity. I specialize in cybersecurity. Even in my postdoctorate, doctoral science degree at AIU, I specialize in cybersecurity. So I work closely, and I've had a number of publications in the field of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and machine learning. There are a number of publications that I've come up with, and that I continue to research in these areas, in these fields, and also work collaboratively with others that are researching in these areas that may want to share and work together in the field of cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. I have also published extensively in the information technology for development areas, where we look at application of information technology to different areas of life, different spaces, and especially when it comes to sustainable development and linking it with the effective ways of teaching and learning. And these are some of the papers that I sample, papers that I'm sharing with you. I've conducted also research in the field of management of higher education institutions and also general development. I have come up with a number of publications. They've researched in those areas, and I continue to work with others in informing policy, working with other organizations in the area of development generally and management of higher education institutions. So this is also strengthened by my experience of having worked for many years in the senior management of university. And so that some of these things are not just theoretical, but very practical in every way. I have also researched and continue to research on the foundations, in particularly the theoretical foundations of computer science, the actual theory that informs the practice. I'm actively involved in research in those areas. And these are just a few of the publications that I'm just sharing with you, that as much as we look at applications and developments in technology, we also need some time to go back onto the framework and the founding principles to interrogate them and come up with the new concepts, new theories, and the new foundations. And this is an area that I'm also very much actively involved. So here are some of the few sample publications that I've published, and one of them is in my area of machine learning, big data analytics, and it covers both cybersecurity and other related issues. These are just samples of papers that I published. And others I've also done in coming up with a new model. This is a model that I advocate, a model which, if you want to put a cybersecurity system in any organization, sometimes you need to be informed and guided by a model that works, that takes into consideration the framework that is applicable in the context of that particular country or continent, so that will come up with real solutions. So these are some of the things that I've done. So basically, with regards to the legacy that I'm sharing with you, I've just shared with you the international awards, the academic achievements and accomplishments I've made, the research publications I have produced over the years in different fields, and also working collaboratively in other areas. And I was also sharing with you that at a national and international level, I've also made accomplishments working with different bodies from the US, in Europe, and various bodies in Africa and also Asia. As a consultant, is also as a seasoned academic sharing research with you. And I work in the communities. I do also work with students and upcoming researchers, inspiring, mentoring, and helping others in doing many other things. So this is what my legacy is all about. And I want to thank you so much for that. And I can be able to take any questions or any issues that require clarification for my presentation. Thank you, Dr. Edward Lambert. I hand over this to you.
Thank you so much, Professor Gabriel Kabanda. Any questions? There's a question here from Domingos in chat, is what can education do with the family and for the family?
Right. Well, that's a very good question. I can respond to that. You see, education is at the centerpiece of sustainable development in a community. And most importantly, also in a family, at a family level, education brings in a foundation of many things. It informs the family members, the children, on how to get prepared for the future, and also to become aware of the issues that are important in different areas. For example, if you look at a field like agriculture, if the family is interested in agriculture or they've got a farm, you find education that is relevant in that area can equip the family to take agriculture more seriously, to sustain themselves and sustain their family and do many other things with the nations. If it is in another field of business, it also equips and helps them to be able to grow and become serious entrepreneurs, how they can become successful as entrepreneurs in business. So education does prepare a foundation for development of individuals or family members, and gives direction in many other ways to the people that are coming in society. But one of the things that I find which is very important, particularly at the family level, is to train and raise the children and family members to develop specific skills, competencies, and attitudes. Because the skills, competence, and attitude can easily come out of education. And a few years later on, you find the family members begin to excel, they begin to do well, they become recognized as engineers, as medical doctors, as lawyers, and so on. But for one to become a lawyer, it starts right from the very beginning, getting inspired at the lowest level, so that they identify specific profession, particular route to come, and they polish themselves up, building up on the talents and many things which they would want to develop. So that's basically what I see as the major contribution of education to the family and as well as the communities that are around them. It is the centerpiece for sustainable development and ability to develop skills, competencies, and attitude. Thank you.
We have another question.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Go ahead, please, Dr. Lorenzo.
I have not a question, but I'd like just to thank you very much, Professor Gabriel Kabanda, because your very great and very important curricula, your very great and very important CV. You already worked in different companies in the past, and you are a very hard student. You are a very hard student. You are an example for us. Every us that are students here at Atlantic International University, you have a very great, your words and your CV is a very great incentive for us. So, Professor Gabriel Kabanda, thank you so much for your CV. Thank you so much to share with us your history. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, Dr. Eduardo Viana. All I can say really that from what I was sharing with you is particularly when you look at students, for one to come up and achieve excellence, you need three things. Number one, there's need for focus. The focus is important. And then number two, there's need for discipline, where one must be very disciplined on how to manage time for the studies and even the work that needs to be done. And then number three, there's need work has no shortcuts. You have to deliver what is expected of you. If you are given an assignment, put an extra effort to do that assignment. If it is a research paper, work very hard until you finish it. So these three ingredients of focus, discipline, and hard work can produce excellence for students, for business people, and generally in life, because that is a formula for excellence that can work everywhere and anywhere in the world. Thank you for that good comment, Dr. Viana.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Dr. Lambert, can I ask a question?
Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I'm Michel Haman. I would like to thank the professor for this wonderful presentation. He's a pride of Africa, I can say, and a pride of IEU also. because we are really happy to have you in our midst. I would like to ask a question. If you have an advice in Africa today,
I think your sound is not coming out well. Michael, I've lost your sound.
Can I ask a question?
I think you can go ahead, then Michael can come back. Michael was asking a question. I think we lost him.
Yes. Yeah, Charles, go ahead and ask your question while Michael figures out his sound.
Okay, thank you. I am Reverend Father Charles Nyame, originally from Nigeria, but currently working in the Republic of Ireland. I would like to thank the professor for a beautiful presentation. That goes to show that education is one of the most important legacies we'll leave for the future generation. But what are some of the practical ways or things that the professor would like to recommend, especially for areas whereby poverty is a big stumbling block for people who wish to study or go higher in their academic qualifications or desires or pursuits? That is my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Father Charles Nyame, for that good question. There are practical ways which we can take, which we can pursue along the lines of education to empower, to help and assist individuals. There are a number of people who want to get into business, and others are adversely affected by poverty. Now, the way to come out of poverty requires is a process that requires a change of mindset. A change of mindset at the very beginning helps people to realize that regardless of their own circumstances and the levels which they come out of it, they can still become somebody, they can achieve greater things in life. Most of the successful academics and business people, they've come up and come from very poor families in many ways. So sometimes it may look like it's a disadvantage, but even you know, in a very poor setup, one can be able to come up with those. What is important is to have that specific inspiration and focus and discipline and hard work. And so going back now to say the practical ways we can look at now to help people come out of this poverty, it's important to work on education and awareness programs, inspiring young people. Even if the money for school fees is not there, but as we inspire them and help them, we can assist them to get small little scholarships. We can assist them with community leaders. We can organize and work with community leaders so that some bursaries or some other assistance, particularly some of the talented children, particularly with some of the girl children, you may find some of them want to do well, but they've got these limitations. And so we can, in a practical way, go at school levels, talk to the children, inspire them, encourage them, and work with certain systems that we may have in different institutions or nations to be able to assist those kind of children. But for those that are already grown up and those that are rising up, you can still, it's not too late to go to school. There are a number of facilities in open and distance learning. You always get an opportunity to learn. I've seen and I've learned with people that are fairly old, even with a university like Atlantic International University. It's one of the universities that, among others, but one of the best universities that, you can even learn when you are in the 60s or 70s and get a degree which you never had in your life. So open and distance learning is an approach which is available to everyone, where you can start at the primary school level, go through secondary, through distance education until you get to university. and get all the way. So the practical thing to do is to work with those people, help them, encourage them, inspire them. And then lastly, also, I've seen that even at the university level, that assistance must continue going up, because you get people who struggle, who want to be encouraged, who want to be inspired on how to come up with research publications. So the key thing is for the professors to work with their students, doing joint research work, doing various things together, and until you pass on the baton stick to them. And as you do certain work together with students, you find later on they mature, they begin to do certain things on their own, they begin to do more discoveries and more innovations, more than yourself. So the key thing is teamwork. It's always important to work with families and people at community level to identify skills, help those that are disadvantaged in particular, and push them up in many other ways, and continue to train people in many ways. And I would also not forget to mention that sometimes it's wiser to work with the governments to assist in poverty alleviation, where you avail yourself as part of national duty, not necessarily for monetary purposes, but monetary duty to say, look, I understand you want to do a policy in this area, but I can come in as an academic, I can work with your people and do this, this, and that. So when you do that, now you begin to influence policy formulation processes. And you then get involved also in influencing and how the policy itself can benefit the disadvantaged people and poor people in many ways. And in the process, you find even resources then can become channeled for the benefit of the people in communities in many other areas. So these are some of the things that, let me just conclude by saying there's one example I did in Zimbabwe, where we introduced the information kiosks deep in the villages away from towns and cities. So I worked closely with the government, developed the ICT policies, then went on to say, let's go into the communities, identify areas where we can come up, put up computer labs for the benefit of the school children and those that are in those areas. With time, you find people started using those information kiosks and centers almost more or less in the same way as it is done in communities. So that transformed the communities, and it helped people, and it continues to assist them in many other ways. Thank you so much for that good question. Okay.
Great, Professor Gabriel, we have more questions here.
Oh, that's all right.
There's a question here from Boniface, who asks about today's youth and whose interest in education is being gradually drowned in the quest for quick money provided by the entertainment industry. How do you respond to this? Yeah,
yes, this is a very interesting question. It's a challenge we face in our communities where as educators, you want to encourage people to pursue education, to go through and complete their studies. But there is always competition of attention. And you find that most of the students and the younger people, sometimes they then easily get attracted to the entertainment industry and the ways of making money very easily. And so it's a struggle that we always get. And so the approach that is required, that is effective, is an education and awareness process where you have to sell the need for skills and competencies in certain professions, where you want to inspire the young people, not necessarily to make easy and quick monies in the streets after 2-3 days and then many things change, but you want to encourage them to look at the long-term development and long-term careers in a way. So there's always a need to, to be talking to the other younger people, talking to the groups, and particularly if they are already organized as groups and so on. It's important to talk to their communities and leadership to encourage them so that they don't get overtaken and get the attention taken by entertainment and quick ways of making money. Because some of the children that have, young people that have fallen victim of such things, in the end, in the negative side, they end up now taking drugs and taking advantage of in the street. So street life is always rough and it's not always safe. And so we always want to encourage our children, we talk to them, encourage young people to say, let's develop something that can create a legacy. Let's establish businesses. Let's go to school. Let's have something in the long term. So it's an educational awareness program that you want to look at. Even those who are interested in getting who are interested in earning a living in the entertainment business, you still can visit them and help them, encourage them that even in entertainment, there are certain formal ways of developing their career, developing these things in the long term. So education becomes important in polishing whatever skills and abilities they have. Others are very good musicians, but even in that process, in the musical industry, you want them to look at even taking music in a bigger way so that they get broadened in terms of knowledge of that area. And so that you move them back into the line so that they begin to understand the importance of the framework of education in every other area. But it's always a battle we are facing from time to time, most of our communities, where some of the youths are particularly interested in making quick monies in the streets, rise for entertainment, which has no future. And or his future is always unpredictable. And this is why we always want to sell education, to say, in all these things, in the long term, education becomes important because there are certain drastic changes that can happen in nations, in countries, and so on. So if people are empowered, they're equipped, they can still redefine, they can see, they're able to come up with a new course of action in certain ways. Because the purpose of education is to teach people to think, to come up with new solutions, to be very original in many situations. And these are some of the things we have to sell and encourage our young people to move away from the streets and get back into the formal ways of doing things. Thank you very much for that very good question.
The next question comes from Asafi Nuruddin, who talks about what was the legacy that you received from your parents, and how, and is it good to change the legacy for the children, for the next generations?
Right. Wow, this is a fascinating question you're asking. From my parents, there are two things that I learned. I grew up in a blessed family where both my parents were always, talking so much of the importance of education. In our communities where we grew up, where I grew up in Harare, particularly well before independence, these were communities that were generally very poor communities, disadvantaged in many ways. And so my parents would see the difficulties they went through in their life, that if they'd been educated, then they could have lived a better life. So to them, education was a way of opening up the minds and opening up capabilities. And so that's why they kept on talking about that. And I thank God that I took that, and I took education more seriously than anything else in the family, to provide that leadership and run with it, and so that we be able to. So I learned a lot from my parents, the need to take education seriously. And then number two, the second issue that goes into legacy that I also picked up from my parents was the issue of integrity and love, just that you need to be yourself. You need to be a person of integrity in everything that you do. Stand on your word and do many things. And that taught me a lot of things that in communities that we grew up, especially in big cities like Harare, they're just like, like Nairobi and Lagos and so on. If you are growing in such communities as a young child, there has to be something inside you, certain ways of learning to separate yourself from street lives. Because a lot of young people are roaming in the streets. Some of them don't want to go to school and so on. So it's always important then to look at yourself to say, but I'm not of this personality. So the legacy that I learned from the parents was that it's important then also to preserve your own integrity, preserve certain values we have. There are certain African values that we grew up with, which I would want to continue also to pass on to the next generations. That there are certain values in which you care so much about people in your own communities. It's not just, life is not just about yourself and yourself and yourself, but there's always needed to love the people that are around you, make a contribution, help others. It's more satisfying. And these are the things I learned from the parents, that which I want to pass on to the next generation to have an impact. If you can assist someone in a given day, you will make life different. If you can assist a student to go through a particular difficult phase in life, that assistance is of great significance, not only for yourself, but for the life you are preparing. So helping others is always a good thing. And I always look back that even in myself, as I grew up in school and so on, I was always helping other, classmates with assignments. I was a lot more, in fact, from primary school, I was essentially like a teacher, teach others. And throughout the universities, everywhere I went, I always, whenever there are difficult assignments, I'll talk to the colleagues and say, let's discuss. I've got some ideas. So I always volunteered to help others, always volunteered to solve the problems with them. And so this is a legacy I think we should be able to create also, where we avail ourselves, whatever skills, capabilities, and other things we have. When we step out our way to help people around us, we can make the world very different. So some of these lessons come from my background, and others I've learned also to be able to assist and pass on to say, no, I think even for our own children, I think let them work very hard, let them learn to care for other people so that we don't have problems of selfishness or selflessness, as we were discussing a little earlier on, which is always a problem in our modern generations. But we want to open them up and encourage them to look at the world in a positive way so that they make a contribution quickly, and so that we can solve the problems around us and not wait for someone from far away. Thank you for that very good question.
Professor Gabriel Kabanda,
Yeah.
with everything that you've done and all the organizations you've been a part of, how does somebody get involved in organizations?
All right. It's a good question. You see, with organizations, most organizations have certain needs. They have certain things they want to solve, certain problems they want to solve, get solved. And so the approach to take most of the time is to orient your skills, your capabilities in a manner which can be able to solve a problem for an organization or a system. And so when you then approach them to say, I know you want to do this, but I can make a contribution, and my contribution may come in this way. So by offering and availing yourself, not just about your background, but going an extra mile to say, I can work with your team, I can help, we can work together to develop this and that. If you sell the end product, the end result, the achievement, the accomplishment which the organization would achieve, you find most organizations are very open. They can gladly accept you as an advisor or to assist them develop strategic plans. Like some of the organizations that I've assisted, you find I can approach them to say, you're a new university, I knew this, I can be able to assist you to come up with a strategic plan and do this other thing. So sometimes then they compare you with other reputable companies. And I said, look, my approach is different. So you then have to sell yourself, you have to demonstrate now in the work hard. Even the proposal that you submit and the proposal that you give in all those areas, you need to get into the organization by selling the solutions which they are looking for. And when they've given you an opportunity, then you must deliver. Once you deliver for the first time, you are now already inside the organization. You now have an eyesight now that enables you to see other problems that were around. And then when you've delivered the first time, you can then take it another level to say, now we've done this thing, can we go to stage number 2? I've noticed this, and you sell the idea and the help and other things. So this is how we get into organizations. I've done, and I've always seen it working well for various organizations and even other group of companies. I've been a consultant to big groups of companies, and so you start penetrating at a lower level. You sell yourself, particularly at the board level. If you can get access to that, do a wonderful presentation, sell yourself, promise real solutions that are practical, and then demonstrate that this works. And if you then get the opportunity, you don't have to do the work yourself on your own. If it is a business problem or consulting work, you can assemble a team, come up with a team. There are certain areas you are not very strong at. And so in your team now, you can get some people who are sharpshooters in certain areas, and your team now can win. And when you move in now to offer a solution, you find your solution will now be a very complete and comprehensive solution because we are able to harness all these skills and contributions from different areas. So this is where you always position ourselves. So I would also say that we must also continue building up our profile. Most organizations want to be associated with people that have got an acceptable profile, a profile they can take seriously. So we have to take some years, we have to take a couple of months, building up the profile, demonstrate this. And when you've done certain good things, certain areas, keep on adding these things onto your profile. And with time, doors can be opened and you demonstrate and you continue to prove many ways. Thank you, Dr. Edward Lam.
Matthew Tutkol, you can activate your microphone.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Edward Lambert, for giving me the floor. And I would like also to thank Dr. Kabanda for the nice experience sharing. My name is Matthew. I'm a student at the AIU pursuing my PhD in public health, and originally from South Sudan. So I have two questions, or comment rather. The first thing is, since we are now adapting and we are in a 21st century where the internet era and the distant learning is trying to take shape, how can we make sure that we utilize the distant learning to achieve one's potential? So some areas you may find, for example, the connectivity is not that strong for you to get connected to the online learning. How can such a people try to benefit from the distant learning? That's one question. The second aspect is for Dr. Kabanda, you have done a very tremendous job on sharing your experience and doing a lot of publication. And for you to connect actually with the outside world, you need to show or share what you have learned. So for those who are just trying to take the baby steps on how they can do the publications, what advice could you give them so that they can be able to do a lot of research and share their knowledge with the outside world? Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for that very good question, Matthew. The very first question concerning distance education in the internet era, this is an area I'm very much experienced in, having, because of my experience in working and managing a university for many years in this area. But one of the things that you see and we learn to do is to encourage people to learn, to study for degree programs, particularly with the distance education, because the convenience of distance education is convenient in terms of time, in your own space, and many other things, regardless of the technology or facilities that may be around. And so the way to do it then would be in certain communities, there's always a need to have access to internet connectivity, if you can have access to it. But where it's not available, there are also approaches we can take which are offline. And the offline mode allows us to access and have access to and be able to get learning materials or resources in the form of physical books or other things that have been accessed by others, which you can have. And what you always encourage those who are doing distance education is that, particularly in environments where the internet connectivity is always a challenge, particularly in certain parts in Africa, as you go outside the big cities, internet access is always a problem. And so for those who are learning in those communities outside big cities and so on, we always encourage them, and I always encourage them to get access to, if they can have access to learning materials as hard copies, wherever they can, or any other backups which are offline, that even wherever they are, whether they are CDs or many other things, they can learn and continue to read and research using whatever they've accessed offline. And whenever they get an opportunity later on of connecting whenever they get an opportunity to connect with the internet, then they can catch up and do the many rest. So distance education can be done in both synchronous and asynchronous mode. You can be able to do it online and also when you're not online. And the good thing also, even if you take an example like Atlantic International University, they've got this model already well defined and polished, Because sometimes when you are not able to do a lot of online interaction most of the time because of the internet challenges and so on, but you can prepare your assignments offline and so on, then load them and send them more or less like the way you put emails. And that particular route and approach is common and is an approach which we encourage, particularly in environments where people are not always online all the time. So the encouragement is to assemble, to gather as much of the learning materials as possible offline, which you can study and research and do that. And distance education is the way to go. The future of education is in distance education. You can even see after COVID-19, the way it disrupted the normal, the formal face-to-face interaction. Face-to-face interaction was totally disrupted by COVID-19. And people now had to revert back. They started now looking at ways of now looking for how they can proceed to learn using e-learning, where they are not very, in close contact with the lecturer or the teacher. The teacher is now at a distance, and that is distance education. And so, and the future is going to be dominated more, by that. What you've gone through COVID-19 is shaping the future of education in terms of making sure that e-learning and online learning becomes the de facto mode of delivery in learning institutions. So this is the way to go and encourage people, regardless wherever they are. Those that are in disadvantaged communities, you want to help them to have access to physical materials in libraries that have got some stocks, and others who can download for them in big cities. They can always bring them to them as a way of helping them. So I think that really can be able to. I have been, been privileged to assist a few people in Sudan. I've worked through the African Council of Distance Education and worked with 2 or 3 universities in Sudan and understand the picture that is there, which is quite common in most African countries. We can reach out to people that are deep in communities, even in farm, in rural areas. They can study and do a degree, even if they don't have hardly, access to that. Then I can go on to the next question you asked. The next question was
Professor Gabriel Kabanda.
Yes.
We've actually run out of time.
Oh, all right.
So we're ready to go on to the next presenter.
All right. Okay. That's my last comment on this one concerning the second question. To assist those who are doing publications, who want to do research, the best way would be to join and work with other established researchers, work with the professors, attend conferences. And I think attending conferences, symposium, and then other areas where papers are being presented opens up people's mind. And they begin now, after that, they are challenged to go and research and come up with papers similar to those that have been presented very well. And so it's always important to work with upcoming researchers by teaming up with them, encouraging them, getting them get involved in symposia and so on. Thank you so much, Dr. Edward Lambert, for the opportunity to respond to the questions.
And thank you so much, Professor Gabriel Kabanda. Please stay in chat and continue to speak with people in chat.
Yeah.
So Professor Gabriel Kabanda will be in chat. You can ask questions and continue the conversation there. Thank you so much. I think for one way to understand your presentation is get involved, get moving. And like you say, find solutions to the problems that organizations have. And that way you can grow into organizations. Wonderful insights. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. I will share my presentation with you right now. Okay, thank you.